When we talk about happiness, we often imagine it as something waiting for us in some distant moment, a perfect day, a perfect opportunity, a perfect version of ourselves. But the truth is, happiness isn't something we stumble upon. It's something we learn to nurture within. Help yourself to be happy every day doesn't mean forcing a smile or pretending everything is fine. It means choosing, again and again, to return to the quiet places inside you that are still whole, still hopeful, still capable of joy. It means understanding that even in the middle of your struggles, you can reclaim small pieces of light. Today, I want to take you on a journey back to those places where your heart remembers how to breathe, where your soul remembers. It was created with purpose, and where your happiness begins not from the outside world, but from within you. So often we wait for happiness to arrive as if it were a visitor walking toward us from a far horizon, someone whose footsteps we can almost hear but never fully see. We wait for the perfect moment, the perfect person, the perfect opportunity, and without realizing it, we build our lives around the hope that something outside of us will finally unlock the joy we have been longing for. But what if happiness isn't waiting on the outside at all? What if happiness is a quiet invitation calling you inward, asking you to return to a place inside yourself that has always been there, a place that becomes buried not because it disappears, but because life becomes loud, heavy, and distracting? Helping yourself to be happy every day begins with this understanding. Happiness grows from inner alignment, not outer perfection. Inner alignment is when your heart, mind, and actions begin to walk in the same direction. It is when you stop running after things that exhaust your soul and begin turning toward what nourishes it. Many of us feel unhappy, not because life is terrible, but because we are constantly pulled away from our true center. We wake up every morning surrounded by noise, expectations, pressures, opinions, comparisons, unresolved wounds, and we try to anchor our happiness to things that were never meant to carry that weight. When you seek happiness from places that cannot hold you, you eventually fall. Not because you are weak, but because you are relying on something unstable. To help yourself be happy every day, you must begin by returning to what is stable within you, to the core that cannot be shaken by circumstance. There is a part of you that knows peace even when life feels chaotic. There is a part of you that remembers who you are even when the world is trying to tell you what you should be. There is a part of you that feels light even when you are surrounded by heaviness. That part of you is still there, beneath the layers, beneath the exhaustion, beneath the worries, waiting for you to acknowledge it again. Helping yourself begins by choosing to listen to that quiet voice rather than the noise around you. Happiness grows in the moments when you slow down enough to hear your own heart, when you choose to be gentle with yourself, when you stop demanding perfection and start allowing yourself to be human. Inner alignment is not about ignoring reality or pretending everything is fine. It is about recognizing that the storms outside you do not need to become storms within you. It is about learning to stand in the center of your life with a calm heart, even when everything else is shifting. So many people search for happiness in things that are constantly changing. People's approval, material success, temporary comforts, and then feel hurt when happiness slips away again. But how can something constant come from something temporary? How can something lasting come from something fleeting? Happiness born from the outside world can be beautiful, but it is fragile. Happiness born from inner alignment is steady because it is connected to something deeper than circumstance. Every day you have a choice, even when it feels small, even when it feels insignificant. You can wake up and surrender to the noise, or you can wake up and return to your center. You can help yourself by pausing, breathing, reflecting, reconnecting. You can help yourself by setting boundaries that honor your energy. You can help yourself by choosing what brings you closer to peace rather than further from it. Happiness is not an accident, it is an act of returning to yourself, to meaning, to stillness, to what matters. And the truth is, no one else can do this returning for you. People can support you, love you, encourage you, uplift you, but they cannot align your heart. They cannot walk into your inner world and rearrange it for you. That work belongs to you, and it is sacred work. Helping yourself begins with honesty. Honesty about what drains you. Honesty about what nourishes you. Honesty about what you are carrying that no longer belongs in your hands. Sometimes the reason we feel unhappy is because we are holding on to things that are too heavy for our hearts. Old wounds, old fears, old expectations, old identities. We carry them as if letting them go would make us lose a part of who we are. But often letting go is not losing yourself. It is returning to yourself. When you release what no longer aligns with your truth, you create space for joy to breathe. You create space for light to enter. You create space for happiness to grow naturally without force. Inner alignment also means forgiving yourself for the moments you lost your way, for the times you chased illusions, for the times you silenced your inner voice, for the times you believed that your worth depended on how others saw you. Forgiving yourself is not a sign of weakness. It is an act of strength. It is the recognition that you deserve compassion even from yourself. The journey to happiness is not a straight line. It is a path with turns, setbacks, pauses, awakenings. Every time you step back into alignment, you help yourself find a new layer of peace. One of the most powerful ways to help yourself is to begin paying attention to the conversations you have with your own mind. The words you speak inwardly shape the world you live in. If your inner dialogue is full of harshness, blame, criticism, or fear, your heart will feel unsafe inside your own chest. But if you begin to treat yourself with gentleness, if you begin to speak to yourself with the same compassion you offer others, happiness becomes easier to access. Your inner voice becomes a place of refuge rather than a battlefield. Many of us are struggling not because life is unkind, but because we have become unkind to ourselves. To help yourself every day, you must learn to be a friend to your mind, to speak with patience, to offer understanding, to allow yourself space to grow. Another layer of inner alignment comes from recognizing where you are giving your energy. Happiness fades when you invest yourself in places that drain your spirit. It returns when you invest in what strengthens you. Sometimes helping yourself means stepping away from environments that make your heart feel small. Sometimes it means distancing yourself from people who constantly pull you out of your peace. Sometimes it means saying no even when you said to saying yes. Your energy is sacred, and where you pour it determines the quality of your inner life. When you begin to protect your emotional space, you make room for happiness to settle. There is a deep truth that many people overlook. Happiness is not found in constantly adding more to your life, but in removing what blocks your inner clarity. Happiness is not always about acquiring. Sometimes it is about releasing the pressure to be perfect, releasing the belief that you must carry everything alone, releasing the idea that your happiness must look like anyone else's. When you begin to release these burdens, you help yourself rise, you help yourself breathe, you help yourself rediscover the joy that was buried beneath the layers of expectation. Helping yourself also means choosing what you feed your soul. Just as your body needs nourishment, so does your heart. If you feed it negativity, comparison, resentment, or fear, happiness will feel distant. But if you feed it gratitude, reflection, meaningful connections, and spiritual grounding, happiness will become a companion. What you consume emotionally, mentally, and spiritually becomes the atmosphere inside you. Choose what lifts you. Choose what expands you. Choose what aligns with who you are becoming. There will be days when happiness feels harder to access. Days when your heart is tired. Days when everything feels heavy. On those days, helping yourself does not mean forcing joy, but allowing yourself tenderness, allowing yourself to rest, allowing yourself to acknowledge your emotions without drowning in them. Happiness is not the absence of struggle. It is the ability to remain connected to yourself even in the struggle. It is the decision to return to your inner alignment even when the world feels overwhelming. It is the understanding that peace is a practice, not a coincidence. When you biggie. Living from inner alignment, everything slowly shifts. You start to notice beauty in small things. You begin to find meaning in simple moments. You discover that happiness is not something distant, but something that unfolds in the present. It becomes the way you breathe, the way you speak to yourself, the way you choose your thoughts, the way you honor your truth. It becomes the quiet assurance that Even if life is imperfect, you can still experience peace inside yourself. And every day, you help yourself through small, consistent choices. Choices to pause, choices to reflect, choices to set boundaries, choices to be gentle, choices to let go, choices to realign. These choices are not dramatic. They are subtle, but it is these subtle choices that shape your inner world. Over time, they create a foundation of happiness that no outside force can easily shake. A happiness rooted not in circumstance, but in alignment, not in perfection, but in authenticity, not in the world around you, but in the world within you. There is a quiet kind of unhappiness that grows inside us when we stop honoring our emotional truth, when we stop acknowledging what we really feel, what we really need, and what our hearts are silently trying to say. Many people move through life carrying emotions they never name, wounds they never tend to, and heaviness they never allow themselves to release. They suppress their pain, hide their disappointment, minimize their hurt, and pretend to be fine because they fear being seen as weak or because they learned that their feelings were not important. But happiness cannot grow where truth is buried. Helping yourself to be happy every day requires a deep commitment to honoring your emotional reality, to recognizing that what you feel is not a burden, but a signal, not an inconvenience, but an invitation to understand yourself more honestly. So many people walk around disconnected from their own hearts. They know how to fulfill responsibilities, how to meet expectations, how to appear strong on the outside, but they have become strangers to their inner world. They feel sadness, but call it tiredness. They feel anxiety, but call it overthinking. They feel loneliness, but call it independence. They feel broken, but call it being busy. And slowly they lose touch with themselves. When you ignore your emotional truth, you begin to build your life on a foundation that is unstable because it is disconnected from who you really are. And no matter how beautiful something looks on the outside, if it is built on disconnection, it will crumble from within. Helping yourself begins with the courage to turn inward and ask yourself honestly, what am I really feeling? Not what should I feel? Not what do others expect me to feel? But what is actually happening inside me right now? This kind of emotional honesty is not always easy. Sometimes what you find inside you is painful. Sometimes it reveals wounds you hoped had already healed. Sometimes it brings up truths you are afraid to face. But healing cannot happen without truth, and happiness cannot grow without healing. When you allow yourself to feel what you truly feel, you create room for release, clarity, understanding, and renewal. Honoring your emotional truth also means recognizing that your feelings are valid, even if they are inconvenient, even if they are complicated, even if they do not make sense to the people around you. You do not need permission to feel what you feel. You do not need someone to approve your pain before you allow yourself to acknowledge it. Your emotions are messengers, and every messenger carries a meaning. Sadness may be telling you that something needs to be released. Anger may be telling you that a boundary was crossed. Fear may be telling you that you are stepping into the unknown. Loneliness may be telling you that your heart is longing for deeper connection. Joy may be telling you that you are aligned with truth. Every emotion has a purpose. And when you listen to these whispers, you begin to understand yourself in a deeper and more compassionate way. There is a certain kind of peace that only arrives when you stop fighting your feelings. Many people exhaust themselves trying to suppress what hurts. They push down their sadness because they believe it makes them weak. They silence their anger because they were taught it makes them difficult. They ignore their fear because they think it makes them dramatic. But denying your emotions does not make them disappear. It pushes them into the corners of your heart where they grow heavier, sharper, and harder to face. When you suppress emotions, they often rise again in unexpected ways. Through irritability, through numbness, through burnout, through emotional distance, through sudden waves of sadness. But when you allow yourself to feel your emotions with honesty and compassion, they soften, they move, they heal. Helping yourself to be happy every day means creating emotional space within yourself. A space where your feelings can exist without judgment. Instead of asking, why am I feeling this? You learn to ask, what is this feeling trying to teach me? Instead of saying, I shouldn't feel this way, you learn to say, this feeling is telling me something important. Emotional honesty transforms the relationship you have with yourself. It shifts you from self-criticism to self-understanding, from pushing yourself to punishing yourself, to finally listening and supporting yourself. One of the most powerful acts of emotional honesty is allowing yourself to sit with discomfort. Not running away from it, not distracting yourself from it, not numbing it, but sitting with it long enough to understand it. Discomfort is not a sign of failure, it is often a sign of growth. When something inside you feels unsettled, it is usually because your soul is trying to awaken. It is trying to guide you toward what needs change, what needs release, what needs attention. But if you constantly avoid discomfort, you delay your transformation. Sitting with your emotions is not easy, but it is profoundly healing. It teaches you resilience, courage, presence, and trust. It reminds you that even painful emotions cannot break you. They can only reveal you. Emotional truth also requires gentleness. You cannot force yourself to heal. You cannot rush your heart into feeling differently. Healing has its own timeline, its own rhythm, its own unfolding. Sometimes the most powerful form of self-help is allowing yourself to slow down, allowing yourself to rest when you feel tired, allowing yourself to cry when you feel overwhelmed, allowing yourself to pause when your heart feels stretched thin, allowing yourself to feel deeply without apologizing for your depth. Gentleness is not a luxury, it is a necessity. A heart that is treated with harshness becomes hard. A heart treated with gentleness becomes open, soft, receptive, capable of happiness. Many people lose happiness not because their lives are terrible, but because they carry too many unspoken emotions. Unspoken sadness becomes heaviness. Unspoken fear becomes anxiety. Unspoken disappointment becomes bitterness. Unspoken dreams become regret. Unspoken love becomes emptiness. When you begin giving your emotions a voice, even quietly, even privately, you begin releasing what has been building inside you for years. You lighten the emotional load you have been carrying. You give your heart room to breathe again. Some emotions do not need solutions. They need presence. They need acknowledgement. They need space. They need patience. Learning to sit with your emotions without immediately trying to fix them is an act of emotional maturity. It is a declaration to yourself that you are worthy of understanding, not just productivity. It is a declaration that your inner world matters as much as your outer responsibilities. When you honor your emotional reality, you build a relationship with yourself that is rooted in truth rather than performance. Emotional truth also means recognizing what you need and allowing yourself to ask for it. So many people have learned to silence their needs to avoid burdening others or to avoid feeling vulnerable. They have learned to carry everything alone because they believe needing support is a sign of weakness. But honoring your emotional truth means acknowledging that you are human, not invincible. You are deserving of care, love, compassion, and connection. You are allowed to ask for help. You are allowed to seek comfort. You are allowed to share your heart. When you deny yourself support, you deny yourself a basic human need. When you allow yourself to receive support, you open the door to deeper healing and deeper happiness. One of the deepest forms of emotional honesty is becoming aware of the stories you tell yourself. Every person carries an inner narrative shaped by past experiences, fears, wounds, and beliefs. Some people carry stories of unworthiness, thinking they are not enough or not deserving of joy. Some carry stories of fear, believing that happiness always comes with a cost. Some carry stories of comparison, believing they must constantly measure up to others. These stories shape your emotions and your emotional truth. Helping yourself means questioning these stories, challenging them and rewriting them with compassion. You do not have to continue living in a story that hurts you. You are allowed to write new chapters within yourself, ones rooted in truth rather than trauma. Honoring your emotional truth also means recognizing that healing is not linear. There will be days when you feel strong and grounded, and days when old wounds resurface unexpectedly. This does not mean you are failing. It means you are human. Healing is a journey of spirals, returning to the same place with new wisdom each time. Every wave of emotion, every moment of discomfort, every quiet ache is part of the process. When you allow yourself to feel without judgment, you transform your heart from a battlefield into a sanctuary. Another essential part of emotional truth is learning how to differentiate between temporary emotions and deep emotional needs. Temporary emotions come and go. They rise and fall with circumstances. Deep emotional needs are more constant and require deeper reflection. If you feel lonely for a day, it may simply be a passing feeling. But if you feel emotionally disconnected from yourself or others over a longer period, that is a deeper need calling for attention. If you feel stressed for a moment, it may be situational. But if you feel consistently overwhelmed, your life may be misaligned with your inner truth. When you learn to listen to your emotions with discernment, you gain clarity about what is temporary and what needs change. This clarity is essential for creating a life that supports your happiness. Emotional truth is also tied to boundaries. Many people experience emotional exhaustion because they allow too much access to their inner world. They absorb others' emotions, carry others' expectations, and lose themselves in the process. Helping yourself means learning when to say no, when to step back, when to protect your heart. Boundaries are not walls. They are bridges that keep your emotional world safe and healthy. When you have strong boundaries, you give yourself the emotional space needed for peace, clarity, and happiness. Another part of honoring your emotional truth is learning to embrace vulnerability. Vulnerability is often misunderstood as weakness, but it is actually one of the strongest expressions of emotional honesty. It means you are willing to reveal your true feelings, to show up authentically, to allow yourself to be seen not only in your strength, but also in your tenderness. Vulnerability deepens your connection with yourself and with others. It strengthens relationships, nurtures emotional intimacy, and allows your heart to experience love more freely. When you hide behind emotional armor, you may protect yourself from pain, but you also blow. CK yourself from joy. Vulnerability is the door through which authentic happiness enters. Honoring your emotional truth also involves recognizing how your past shapes your present emotional world. Many of the feelings you experience today have roots in experiences you may have forgotten or tried to forget. The ways you react to certain situations, the fears you carry, the ways you protect yourself, the ways you love, the ways you struggle. All of these patterns come from emotional imprints of your past. Understanding this is not about blame, it is about awareness. When you explore your emotional history with compassion, you begin to understand why you feel the way you do, why certain things trigger you, and why certain emotional patterns repeat. This awareness gives you the power to break cycles, to heal old wounds, and to create a healthier emotional future. When you honor your emotional truth, you also learn to celebrate your emotional growth. Many people overlook their progress because it is not dramatic or visible, but emotional growth happens quietly. It shows in the way you handle disappointment differently. It shows in the way you communicate your needs more clearly. It shows in the way you set boundaries without guilt. It shows in the way you choose peace over chaos. It shows in the way you speak to yourself with more compassion. Every small emotional shift is a step toward happiness. When you begin to notice these shifts, you start to trust yourself more deeply and appreciate your own resilience. Ultimately, honoring your emotional truth is about choosing authenticity over perfection. It is about choosing presence over performance. It is about choosing self-compassion over self-criticism. It is about choosing healing over suppression. It is about choosing honesty over denial. When you live in emotional alignment, you become grounded, centered, and connected to your inner world. And when your emotional world is healthy, happiness becomes more natural, more accessible, more sustainable. You are no longer trying to create happiness from a place of emotional confusion or denial. You are allowing happiness to rise from emotional clarity and truth. When you help yourself by honoring your emotional truth, you give yourself the freedom to live with a heart that is open instead of guarded, with a mind that is calm instead of conflicted, with a soul that is aligned instead of lost. You begin to understand that happiness is not about controlling emotions, but about understanding them. It is not about avoiding pain, but about moving through it with compassion. It is not about pretending to be okay, but about being real with yourself in every moment.